So, Fellfire Deadeye is a hunter, demon hunter, um, dual class card, 2 mana, 2/3. Your hero power costs one less. I think that this card doesn't see much play in Wild because in Demon Hunter, because Demon Hunter is going to struggle for a while to be relevant outside of Baku Demon Hunter. I can't imagine what type of aggro Demon Hunter would want to include this so that they could do one damage attack for free every turn anyway. But I feel like even Hunter would want to play this card because you can play it alongside like Garrison Commander on turn 4 and use the hero power twice, and or you can play it alongside Phase Stalker on 4 and get a secret. I think this is going to be interesting in Even Hunter and maybe gets cut eventually just because like the hero power is automatically so cheap anyway, and this is going to be useless on the odd mana turns. But I'm probably more excited to play around with this than I am anything else in the set. Resizing Pouch, 1 mana Hunter Druid spell. Discover a card with cost equal to your remaining mana crystals. So this is Zephrys, but it doesn't give you a perfect card. It gives you something, and it doesn't give you a 3/2 body. So I don't know that you would choose to put this in your deck, but it's the type of thing that like if you get it off of Cobalt Spellkin or something like that, then you're pretty happy about it because it's, you know, like it's 1 mana for get a decent card that you can play this turn. So I would say this is probably not main decks worthy, but it is interesting. It's better than like as far as like a card that gives you something decent to play on any turn, it's better than like the forbidden 1 mana 1/1 in Druid that just gives you a giant body that you have no control. Like there's forbidden shaping in Priest that's just kind of spend all your crystals, get something, and then there's like the Druid one that's just make a body. So like as far as like just having a card that you can play on a turn that'll give you something good, this is all right. But I don't think you choose to put it in a deck. I'd be surprised. Like the what is it called? Druidic Studies, the Druid study card. That card doesn't see like ubiquitous play in Wild, and it reduces the cost of the card by 1, so you can also use it to ramp to some degree. Whereas this is always whatever that card is plus 1. Then we have Guidance, 1 mana, Druid Shaman spell. Look at 2 spells, add 1 to your hand, or overload 1 to get both. Unless you guys know something I don't, I'm pretty sure this looks at 2 random spells. I don't think it's look at 2 spells in your deck. So it being random spells, that means what's cool about this card is you get to see the spells first, and if you like say you're playing a shaman that doesn't care about totem synergy, and one of the cards you get has totem synergy, you don't have to overload 1 to also take that one. So like you play this hoping to get 2 good spells, and if you don't, it costs half as much. So that's kind of nice. Again, the variance on this is so high, I can't imagine what Druid or Shaman deck would want to include that in their deck on purpose, but it's the type of thing where if you get it randomly, it's pretty good. Imprisoned Phoenix, 2 mana 2/3 elemental, dormant for 2 turns, spell damage plus 2, Shaman and Mage minion. I automatically scoff at everything that has the word dormant on it because they're all so bad. This is kind of interesting. It has the elemental tag, so you can use is it Sandbinder, the 4 mana 2/4 that tutors an elemental. You can use that card to tutor it, and if you get both of them and play them on the same turn, that's kind of like a guaranteed Malygos for for 2 turns later. Mazaki Mage? No, I think in Mazaki Mage you hard lean on Mazaki. You don't need extra spell power from a bad card. But if you're gonna like do a little mini Malygos with just these 2 things, it's interesting. I don't think that it'll ever be good enough in Wild, but we'll see. Like, it's most of Malygos for none of the cost on the turn. So it's -1 spell damage for, you don't actually have to play the Malygos on that turn. You play it 2 turns before, and then it's all right. Is this good in an Overload Shaman deck? The Guidance? Maybe. It already has like 1 mana Discover an Overload card, Overload 1, and that I don't think makes the cut in an Overload Shaman deck. But we'll see. This is 1 mana for 2 cards. The other one is 1 mana for 1 card. Oh, you think Phoenix in Overload Shaman? Like, I think you would build a Phoenix deck like Malygos Shaman, and then just use this instead of Malygos. But you're saying just like toss this into a deck that has a lot of spell damage and have +2 spell damage a couple turns later. Man, your opponent's just gonna Loatheb you leading into when this pops. I don't know. I feel like an aggressive deck wants their minions to matter immediately, and this one matters a little bit later. So I don't know. I don't like, this is going to be, I think this is going to be a mini Malygos combo or not used at all. Key Warden Ivory, Battlecry, discover a dual class spell from any class, spell burst, get another copy. It is a 5 mana 4/5 mage and rogue minion. So I think that rogue cares about tempo, or like odd rogue cares a lot more about tempo than it does about value. So this is like some decent value. It's Battlecry, discover a good card, Spellburst, get a second copy of that good card. So it's pretty good value for a 5 mana 4/5 body. But like the tempo is pretty bad, right? This is as bad as playing Polkelt on curve. I can't think of a mage deck that would be slow enough to play this. Like LPG might play it just because Battlecry, discover a good card is relevant for them, because they can like recycle them and play them over and over again. Reno Quest Mage, interesting. Yeah, I could see Reno Quest Mage playing this for sure. But yeah, LPG maybe, because like they run so few spells, they can't always activate the spell burst, but maybe they have enough, and maybe they don't always want to activate the spell burst. The only rogue deck I can think of that would maybe run this is Odd Rogue, and they'd have to care about value, I think, a bit more than they do. And with our next card, the slots in that deck get a little bit tighter. Nitro Boost Poison, Rogue and Warrior 1 mana spell, give a minion +2 attack, and corrupt also your weapon. This card screams Kingsbane, obviously. It is not hard for that deck to corrupt. 1 mana +2 attack on your weapon is already a card that makes the cut in that deck, and this would also give like your deckhand +2 attack, or a minion that's stuck around for a turn. So like Foxy Fraud upgrades it, Raiding Party upgrades it, Eviscerate upgrades it, Swindle upgrades it. There's a bunch of cards in the deck that will upgrade this card. I don't know that it's strictly a better Oil. Oil is 1 card for 6 damage. This is 1 card for 4 damage. I don't think you cut the Tinkers for it. I think it supplements it. But yeah, so like this is in no way limited to just Kingsbane. Every aggressive warrior or rogue deck wants to play this card if they have a weapon. Odd Rogue always has a weapon and runs a bunch of 3 mana cards, so you're going to be able to corrupt this pretty easily in that deck too. And Cutting Class is a card, so the more cards that increase the attack of your weapon, the better Cutting Class becomes, and all of these decks want to run Cutting Class. So like it gets like Get Me Out's been playing Pirate Warrior with Cutting Class right now to supplement the loss of Voracious Reader. And like this just makes that so much better, right? You play your deck hands, you give +2 attack to your weapon, immediate rushing attack to your deck hand, and then play Cutting Class or draw 2 cards. I think this card's good. We'll have to see. Like, there's a world where the fact that you have to corrupt this matters more than I think it does, and it doesn't see play because the giving a minion +2 attack matters a lot less than giving your weapon +2 attack. But I'm pretty sure this is like the second or third best card of the set. Barricade, 4 mana warrior paladin spell. Summon a 2/4 guard with taunt. If it's your only minion, summon another. So if you think about in Wild, 4 mana, make 2/4 taunts is pretty good. But it's not like one of the strongest things you can do in Wild. So like in a vacuum, 4 mana, 2/4 taunts conditionally isn't that great. But if you think about like what this card is designed for, it's designed for big warrior and big paladin. There are a lot of like gather your party, and I think the card is Commencement. Is that the 7 mana dual class paladin card? Paladin warrior card. But anyways, there is big paladin, big warrior support, and they require you not to run small minions to reliably cheat out your big minions. So running a spell-based minion card is something that those decks are looking to do, and this could be used in both of them. I think that this isn't necessarily going to make them powerful enough for Wild, but it is going to go into those decks whenever you try to make them. Rally, Paladin Priest spell, resurrect a friendly 1-cost, 2-cost, and 3-cost minion. I actually can't think of a way to break this for Priest. So like maybe Combo Priest could use this if it had like Northshire Cleric into Radiant Elemental into Blood, like the catch-up card. Incoming Pirate Priest meta, I don't know about that. Oh yeah, Injured Tolvir, Blade Master, and Northshire Cleric. That's interesting. All right. I get like, there's a chance that Combo Priest uses this somehow, but it's still 4 mana for stats. It might be 4 mana for enough stats, but it requires you to play all of those cards and not die. So I'm trying to think of like how Priest would use this, and I'm struggling. Northshire, Radiant, Nazmana, yeah, that's the first thing I said. But you have to play all those things on curve and not die to your opponent's aggro deck, and then like be able to play this and not die to your opponent's aggro deck. I don't know. Maybe it's good enough. That's the type of deck that I think it'll be used in if it's used in Priest. Paladin, so like if you get your Righteous Protector and your Shielded Minibot and your Goody 2 shields off of this, that could be kind of strong. That sounds like the type of thing that like Standard might see, but they also run a lot of Broom and Penflingers in their decks, so hard to say. Maybe a pure Paladin would play this if it's running, Righteous Protector and Shielded Minibot and Goody 2 shields or something along those lines. Having talked it out, I almost feel like it might actually be more likely to get played in Priest than in Wild, or than Paladin in Wild, but in either case, I'd be surprised. Hysteria, 3 mana Priest and Warlock spell. Choose a minion. It attacks a random minion until it dies. So, first of all, just the way that this card is intended to be used, like, is it good removal? No? Like, what minion would you use with this to clear a board? I guess you could choose an opponent's minion. Oh, just choose a minion. So if your opponent has a Flesh Giant, has like 2 Flesh Giants out and like a bunch of Dark Lair minions, it could kind of like clear the... Is this... Have I... Like, I've been too much thinking about the combo. Is this actually good? Like, outside of the combo? Like, your opponent's Flesh Giant kills all their other squibbly Dark Lair minions and then trades into the other Flesh Giant. This card's insane. I've spent none of my like thoughts on this just as the card is meant to be used. This card's great, isn't it? Just using this card honestly, I feel like this card is busted. All right. So you can choose an opposing minion. That's a really good removal card, isn't it? It's like ramming speed, but potentially clears a bit more and doesn't require board placement as much. All right. This card's sick. Maybe this is the best card of the set. Or maybe second best, I don't know. But also, you can use this... you can use this card just to... you can use this card for an OTK. So Wretched Tiller is the 1-mana 1/1 that whenever it attacks, it deals 2 damage. Then there's Deathstalker, which is a 3-mana 2/4, give a friendly minion immune. So you have your Wretched Tiller for 1 mana. You give it immune with your Deathstalker. And then if the total amount of health between the Deathstalker and the rest of the board is 15, using Hysteria on the Wretched Tiller means it'll attack 15 times into the other minions and then deal 2 damage each time for 30 damage to your opponent. If you have 10 mana, you can play a second Deathstalker and target your first Deathstalker with it, and Wretched Tiller will attack indefinitely until you've killed your opponent. Probably. I'm pretty sure it works that way. We'll have to see. I feel like a 3-card combo that takes 7 mana most of the time and 10 mana some of the time is probably good enough for Wild, especially in these 2 classes. In Priest, you can shrink the Tiller. Oh, that's cute. That means you can do it on turn 9 instead of turn 10. So is it worth running Shrinkmeister instead of just relying on the second Deathstalker? I don't know. In general, Warlock has so much draw already that I feel like Warlock has got to be the option that, like, if this deck actually becomes a thing, then I feel like it's going to be a Warlock deck, especially with another card that Warlock got this set, 3 mana, draw 3. But Priest could probably pull it off too. This card's nuts. All right, 3 mana, 3/4 minion, Lucky Soul Hoarder for Warlock and for Demon Hunter. Battlecry, shuffle 2 soul fragments into your deck. Corrupt, draw a card. Odd Demon Hunter, prior to the nerf of Shard Shatter Mystic, needed 1 more card to put souls into their deck in order to run a soul odd package, I think. So it's a shame that this card came as late as it did, because even though it requires a 5 mana card to corrupt it in that deck, it just needed something to put the souls into your deck. That might have been a thing, but like, Soul Shatter Mystic is so powerful. It's hard for me to envision that deck just running this and the 1 mana 1/3 to activate the 5 mana card. I don't think that this is going to be enough to carry Soul Demon Hunter in Wild, and I don't think that it's going to be enough to make Soul Fragment Warlock a thing in either format. But if either of those decks is good in either format, I imagine it will play this card, because 3 mana 3/4 get 2 soul fragments is good for a soul fragment deck, and if you've played anything that costs 4 or more, you get to also draw a card on top of that. It's pretty good. So I think this card would be decent if those decks were decent, but they're not, so it's not. Demon Hunter finally gets a Studies card. So 1 mana, Illidari Studies, discover an outcast card, your next one costs 1 less. So if any of you guys were mourning the 5 mana Skull of Gul'dan, you can now play it again. And sometimes you don't even need to include it in your deck. Does Demon Hunter run this card in hopes of high rolling the Skull of Gul'dan? I don't think so, but considering it likes Penflinger, it likes 1 mana spells, and this card can discover more than just School of Gul'dan, right? Like, you can get Consume Magic off of it, you can get Dreadlord's Bite. I don't know that this card alone is enough to make Odd Demon Hunter better than it is in Wild, but I could see it getting played in the Odd Demon Hunters that get played in Wild already. Fell Saber, 4 mana 5/6 demon, can only attack if your hero attacked this turn. So for Demon Hunter, a deck that is a class that is designed to attack often, I feel like this is essentially just a 4 mana 5/6 with no text. The problem is a 4 mana 5/6 with no text is probably not even good enough for Standard, and it's certainly not good enough for Wild, so this card is not good. Dreaming Drake, 3 mana 3/4 dragon, taunt, corrupt, gain +2/+2. This card's really cool. I wish that it was a warrior card. I feel like warrior wants a decent low-cost dragon. I think this is better than Fairy Drake, or Fairy Dragon, whatever that card is. If only it was a warrior card, it might see some play. But it isn't. A druid deck that plays Dreaming Drake can't play Oaken summons efficiently. So it's hard for me to envision running this in like a Jade Druid deck that has the Breath of Whispers. But Breath of Whispers is pretty good, and this is certainly a good dragon in a vacuum. It's something early to do. If it sticks around in your hand, it becomes great to play later on. I'm probably going to try it. I don't know that this card alone is enough to carry like a Jade Dragon Druid, but it'll be fun. Arbor Up, 5 mana Druid spell. Summon 2/2/2 treants, give your minions +2/+1. So this is 5 mana for summon 2 4/3s and also give anything else you have on the board +2/+1. I feel like this card's insane, isn't it? It's like 5 mana spell in Wild right now is like bad because it's just going to get counterspelled, but or like the game's already over because your Dark Glare opponent won on 3. So there's that. But like Token Druid would play this. There's is it Whispering Woods is the card from Witchwood, the 4 mana card that counts the number of cards in your hand and makes that many wisps. So you play that on 4 and then play this on 5, and if even a couple of them survived, this is crazy, isn't it? Plus, like, Innervate's back. So like Lightning Bloom with Arbor Up in a token deck. Glowflies, this card. This is like running nah, not really. I was about to say it's like running 2 more copies of Savage Roar, and it's a little bit like that, but 5 mana is a lot more expensive than 3 mana. Still, I think that this card makes the cut. Between Savage Roar, Branching Paths, and now this, if you can generate enough tokens, you have so much burst potential. And this after Spreading Plague, oh my goodness, you're absolutely right. This card is insane. Because, like, how often do your Spreading Plagues live? So many of them live, right? Like, 3 of them come back to your turn. This gives them each an additional health and additional attack. Have people been talking about this card? I wonder if this card is, like, a sleeper. I don't know. This is a really good card. I think it's great. Bola Shot, 2 mana, deal 1 damage to a minion and 2 damage to its neighbors. This is similar to, is it called Savage Bite? I don't remember. It's a 2 mana hunter spell that deals 2 damage, and then also, like, if it hits a minion, it deals 1 to the sides. That card barely sees play. This card is not going to see play. Although, that makes me think this card is probably better than that one is. 2 mana, deal 1 to patches, and... Nah, it's not what Hunter wants to do. It's not going to see any play. Alright, 3 mana, 3/4, Saddlemaster. After you play a beast, add a random beast to your hand. So, you would run this in a tempo deck that has a lot of beasts in it, so that, like, after your beasts are cleared, you have more beasts to play. That sounds super fair. And fair does not cut it in Wild. This is like one of the slower value cards I've seen in a while, I think. 1 mana, 1/3, Glacial Racer, a mage minion. Spell Burst, deal 3 damage to all frozen enemies. So the obvious synergy here is to play it on 4 alongside Frost Nova and deal 3 damage to all opposing minions. I think that most decks that want to play Frost Nova will likely play this card as well. But how much Frost Nova do you see in Wild these days anyway? I don't think that that's going to make a Freeze Mage deck, but like if a deck is already running Frost Nova and already running Freeze Ray, or Ray of Frost, that one, I could see this card getting played in there because it's a 1 mana 1/3, right? Like you just play it on 1, and then if your opponent can't kill it, they play like their cannon or something, and you Ray of Frost the cannon and kill it, and then trade this into their patches or something. So it's interesting. And actually, having talked that out, I wonder if like something might emerge from that, because it is like 1 mana 1/3 minions see play. It can hit face too. That's true. That is true. It can hit face. So you do this and you Frostbolt their face, and it deals 3 damage to their face. Do I underrate this card? Is that card like nuts and I just haven't thought about it enough? This seems like the type of thing that would go in Mazaki Mage. They run a lot of that free stuff anyway, and having a 1 mana 1/3 to play that kind of interacts well with minions is pretty good. All right. This is a card to watch. I don't know that it goes into anything that already exists, but it's something to look at. 2 mana spell, Conjure Mana Biscuit. Add a biscuit to your hand that refreshes 2 mana crystals. This card sounds like it would be nuts in Quest Mage. Quest Mage has to be better, though. The thing about Quest Mage is it's not bad because the deck itself is bad. It's bad because its matchups are bad. All the like Dark Lair and Seeker Mage are just like keeping Quest Mage out of being relevant. You know, like they're so hostile to the Quest Mage deck right now. I feel like does the biscuit cost 0? This card would be awful if it didn't. You assume the biscuits cost 1? No way. It's got to cost 0. This is 2 mana added Innervate to your hand, an unnerfed Innervate. If it doesn't work that way, this card is maybe still good. I don't know. For Quest Mage. Because, like, this is... You play it on 2, and now you have a card in your hand that didn't start in your deck to activate your quest, but also it gives you more mana. So, like, supplements Elemental Evocation and allows you to play, like, all kinds of Flamewaker Cyclone stuff. I don't think this is enough to carry Quest Mage into viability. It needs the rest of the meta to be less hostile to the strategy of Quest Mage. But as soon as it becomes available again, I think this card just slots right in. I think that's better than most of the spells that the deck already runs. Paladin, 3 mana, 4/5, dormant for 2 turns, Keck. Spell Burst, give your minions Divine Shield. So what's interesting about this compared to the reason that I think that this card is interesting at all is because it has Spell Burst. If it didn't require you to play a spell to give the minions Divine Shield, if it just like did it once it was done being dormant, I think this card would be horrible. Because your opponent would just clear your board going into the turn, and it would put a bunch of Divine Shields on nothing. So the fact that once it becomes live, you have to then play a spell means that you can like hero power your 2/1/1s on the board and play Lost in the Jungle, and then they all get Divine Shield. The thing about that, though, is Odd Paladin already has Steward of Darkshire that is like one of the best things to give your minions Divine Shield of all time. And that's getting cut because Lothraxion exists. So like, I don't think that you would ever run this in Odd Paladin over any of that stuff, and I can't think of another deck that would ever care about this. So it's an interesting card. It has like, I'd rather this be like a 3-mana 3/3 and Spell Burst so that you could use it deliberately, and then maybe it sees play in Standard. But the fact that it has Dormant just means it's never going to get played. Libram of Judgment, 7-mana 5/3 weapon, corrupt, gain lifesteal. This is the first Libram that isn't a spell, which is really cool. If you've played Aldor Attendant and Aldor Truthseeker, by the time you would play this, it costs 4, which is pretty easy for those decks to corrupt. Playing Uther and getting the 5/3 lifesteal weapon felt really, really strong. So having it cheaper than that seems like it might actually be pretty good. If you've used all of your discounters, then this thing costs 1, which is crazy. I think that this card is really good. I don't think that it's enough for Librams in Wild. I think it goes in a Libram deck in Wild. I just don't think that it's good enough to make it more of a thing than it already is. My worry for this card is that, does it give Librams so much in Standard that Librams start to get nerfed and then they're bad in Wild more so than they are? That's kind of how I feel about a lot of these cards. You know, like suddenly, like just with the way that their nerf philosophy has changed in the past year, I'm less excited for existing decks to get support because like underperforming decks in Wild to get support, because if they do get support, then they're too good in Standard, and anything that's remotely good in Standard gets nerfed in Standard now. So like, if something's struggling to be relevant in Wild and it gets a new card like this, then if that deck was borderline pretty good and now it has like a really good card on top of what it already had, do people in Standard start complaining about it, and then the deck gets nerfed for Standard and it's terrible again in Wild? I don't know. I don't know that this card will break Standard, but the deck is already good in Standard, and I think that this is a good card in the Libram deck, so we'll see. Lightsteed, 4-mana 3/6 elemental, priest minion. Your healing effects also give affected minions +2 health. So, if you have a wide board, like for example, if you played Rally, then you play Circle of Healing, everything has additional health, then you play Void Ripper and you smork your opponent. I don't know that this is strong enough to be a build around, but is it strong enough to slot into a Tempo-y Priest deck? No, because Tempo-y Priest decks aren't good, right? I don't know about this thing. Like, I feel like... Yeah, okay, so they've confirmed that if you heal a minion that's at full health, it still gets its additional +2 health, but like, what deck are you putting this in? Like, you would have to run Circle of Healing or Holy Nova to like get a lot of value out of this, but like, if your deck is built to heal, then it has a lot of cards that are healing and not putting minions on the board, which means you don't have minions on the board to heal and then get +2 health. I don't know. Like, this would be really fun if its stats were a little bit better, like if it was slightly above statted, because then like it's a good card on its own, and then if you are floating mana and we're going to use your hero power anyway, you get a little bit of extra benefit. I think that would make it more interesting. Maybe it needs taunt or something, or rush, but I don't know. I don't think this sees any play in either format. 5 mana, 3/5, Dark Inquisitor Zanish. Battlecry, reduce the cost of all corrupt cards in your hand and deck by 2. You know what the problem with this card is? It's in Priest. If this was a neutral card, I think that like anything that wants to play clowns and stuff would play this. But like Priest has Insight, which is already so cheap you don't care about making it cheaper. It has the Taunt minion, which is a 3 mana 4/3, and then you play a 4 mana minion and it gets cheaper. It has the 4 mana Discover a card. Not even Discover, just make a 4 mana card, and if it's corrupted, it's a 7. You know, 2 of those cards aren't good. Like, you would never play those cards. And the third one is already so cheap you don't care about discounting it. So then you have to look at neutral. And what are the good neutral corrupting cards? There's Medic, which I don't think Priest is in a position to break the Medic card. The one that heals for 4, but then corrupt it to make it deal for 4. So like Priest can't really do an OTK. Like even with this card, I think LPG is way better suited to use corrupt cards in Yasharj than Priest would be. So like the last card is like the clowns. So you reduce the cost of the clowns by 2, and then your Geppetto and your Gahoon reduce, like, corrupt them, or your Anduin. And while you're doing all that, you're just thinking, why aren't I playing Raza Priest? You know, like, so this card doesn't see play in Wild for sure. I don't know if it would see play in Standard, but I imagine not. This is such a weird card to put in Priest. I wish it was a neutral. I think that this card would be really, really, really fun if it was a neutral card, but it isn't. Shenanigans. Rogue Secret. 2 mana, obviously. When your opponent draws their second card in a turn, transform it into a banana. I was disgusted and dismayed when I read this the first time, and like I've let something set, like I've let the dust settle a little bit, and I don't think any rogue deck would deliberately devote a slot of their precious 30 cards to include this. So you like, if this card is gonna hose you, it's gonna hose you off of Hanar, and you were already annoyed anyway. So like, you were already having a not fun game of Hearthstone when your opponent played Hanar. So like, this isn't gonna make my game against Hanar any worse, right? Like, I'm already not having fun if I'm playing against Hanar. So Shenanigans is bad. You're not going to play it in your deck. If your opponent gets it randomly, it's a random secret anyway. Random secrets are not fun to play against. So this is probably not going to change your Hearthstone experience too much. Sparkjoy Cheat, 3 mana, 3/3 minion for Rogue. If you're holding a secret, cast it and draw a card. This card is good tempo. This card cheats mana, and this card draws you a card. I think this card is fantastic. If any card was going to make Secret Rogue viable in Wild, it's this one. I don't know that it's enough on its own, but it's a really strong card. If Secret Rogue is ever a thing in Wild, it's going to play this card. And it's going to be one of the powerful cards of that deck. Landslide, 2 mana, deal 1 damage to all enemy minions. If you're overloaded, deal 1 damage again. So 2 mana, what is it? Arcane Barrage, is that the priest? Not the priest, the mage spell. That already exists in Shaman, plus it comes with a minion. This, instead of Maelstrom Portal, is instead of getting the minion, you also get a second round of 1 damage if you're overloaded. I would say this matters the most if, like, Maelstrom Portal is a very good card. If you're going to not run Maelstrom Portal and instead run Landslide, I think you have to have overload potential. So, like, you have to have a reliable way to overload. Maelstrom Portal always gives you a minion, even if you're not overloaded. This thing only becomes Immolation Aura if you are overloaded. So I would say decks with a lot of overload will consider this over Maelstrom Portal, and decks that have spell power and at least some overload will consider this over Maelstrom Portal, because if you have spell damage, you deal 2 damage, and then you deal 2 damage again, and Shaman has a lot of easy access to spell damage. So it depends on the deck. I can't think of a deck in Wild that would just play this, partially because Shaman is struggling in Wild right now. So, but like, if there's ever a deck with a lot of spell power and a lot of overload that isn't like odd, you might see Landslide pop up in that deck. Mistrunner, 5 mana, 4/4 minion. Battlecry, give a friendly minion +3/+3, overload 1. So this is a 5 mana 7/7. Wild has a 4 mana 7/7. The biggest difference between this and that is that this overloads for 1 less than that, so they do have kind of the same net cost, but this comes down a turn later, and coming down a turn later is nothing to scoff at. But 3/3 of this stat effectively has charge, but it also requires you to have a minion on board. So like, if you're playing this on curve into an empty board, it's like A, a turn later, and B, 3 less stats. So 5 mana 4/4, give a minion +3/+3. I can't imagine this sees any play in Wild, but it could see play in Odd. Like, the bar for a card to make the cut in Odd or Even is so much lower, because you can't include half the cards that you could otherwise. So maybe this sees play in Odd Shaman. I think it either sees play in Odd Shaman or it doesn't see any play at all. Warlock. 3 mana, 3 mana spell, draw 3 cards, deal 3 damage to your hero. Forget about Darkglare for a second. Just like, pretend the Darkglare deck doesn't exist. This card is insane! 3 mana for draw 3 cards? Who cares if you take 3 damage? My goodness, that's not like... I would say this card was nuts if it was Overload 3, you know, like... and that's like... I think Overload 3 is worse than taking 3 damage, right? What? What? Like, I've thought things were broken in set reviews before that ended up not being a card at all, but I can't imagine that's true in this circumstance. This seems insane. How is this? How is 3 mana, draw 3 cards with such a minimal downside as take 3 damage to your hero? How is that a card? You know. But now you remember Darkglare, right? The Darkglare deck these days frequently spends its turn 2 and its turn 3 just tapping. That deck wants to do 2 things. It wants to deal a bunch of damage to itself, and it wants to draw cards so it can find its giants and its Loatheb. This does both of those things. This card is ridiculous. We are... it goes right into the Darkglare deck. I don't know what you cut. I have to play with it, but... this is a 2-of in that deck. I would be shocked to find that any Warlock deck that can run this card does not run it, because it is that good. Maybe not Disco Lock. Disco Lock already is like decking itself out and overdrawing constantly, so Disco Lock doesn't need more draw. But like everything else, what I like about this card, my favorite part about this card, is I think that like so Zulok, the deck in standard that's already doing Dark Lair stuff, apparently is already very good, and this card might break it. So what will be nice about this card is maybe we see some nerfs to some of Dark Lair's core, like Raised Dead, Flesh Giant, Dark Lair. Like maybe we see some nerfs to those cards just because this card will be so strong that it pushes that deck over the top in standard. But like if you thought the mini set was going to change the wild metagame, I don't think Dark Lair getting another amazing card is gonna do that. Envoy Rustwix, 5 mana, 5/4 demon, Death Rattle. Shuffle 3 random prime legendary minions into your deck. Random generation is out the wazoo. I wish that just for a couple expansions they wouldn't print like immense random generation cards just for a little bit. Just give me a small break from it, and then maybe I'll appreciate these cards again. I personally am overloaded, but I don't know that this card is any good. It again has the demon tag, so when you want your Void Caller to pull out a Void Lord or an Enhanced Dreadlord, if you pull out instead a 5 mana 5/4 no taunt, your opposing Kingsbane player just smacks you in the face with their giant weapon and kills you. Unlike Ticketus and other such things, this has a Death Rattle and not a Battle Cry, so at least the card wasn't wasted if you pull it out off of Void Caller, so you still get your benefit from it. Can this shuffle more than one of the same legendary into your deck? Because if it shuffles like 2 Solarians into your deck and then you go to play your Reno Jackson, that could be a bit of a bummer. Yeah, so I don't know, like it is 5 mana 5/4 Death Rattle, shuffle 3 good cards into your deck. So I could see if a Fatigue Warlock wanted an extra tool, this might be good enough for it, but it makes your Void Caller worse, and I think Void Caller is like the big makes your Void Caller and it makes your Willow worse. So I think that it might struggle to find a place in Wild. Man, it also, like, this comes back off of Gul'dan and it comes back off of N'Zoth. Maybe I underrate this card. I like any demon that doesn't have taunts, any value demon that doesn't have taunt, I automatically grade lower just because of Void Caller and Willow, but you know, maybe this card is better than I'm giving it credit for. We'll have to see. Wait. So you guys are talking about how like you can go infinite with this card. So like, remember the plus elegant plot twist? So like you run this and N'Zoth and Gul'dan and Kenrathod, and between the 3 of them, you're likely to have infinite Kenrathod primes to keep getting this. I don't know about I don't know which matchups that'll matter in, but it's cute. It'll be fun. This card's fun. I've decided this card is fun. It's fine. If you want to run a fun deck, then too bad, because Secret Mage and Dark Lair exists. So, but in a world where you can play a fun deck, this will be a fun card. Anyways. Spiked Wheel, 1 mana 0/2 weapon, +3 attack while your hero has armor. If your deck otherwise doesn't care about armor, you're not going to start caring about armor because of this card. But if your deck does care about armor, for example, if you're running Odd Warrior, this is a 0 mana 3/2 weapon. So you have to ask yourself, not a 0 mana 3/2, a 1 mana 3/2 weapon. You have to ask yourself, would my deck want to run a 1 mana 3/2 weapon? And if the answer is yes, then you put this card right in. So in Odd Warrior, you play this on 1. On turn 2, you hero power and you kill your opponent's ship's cannon or their dark lair or whatever else you want. I feel like this card slots right into Odd Warrior. I think Odd Warrior got a lot of support this expansion. This card is really good. I think that control decks have historically valued a 2-mana 3/2 weapon, and this is a 1-mana 3/2 weapon for Odd Warrior, and I think it'll see play in that deck. Will it be enough to make decks like Deadman's Hand run 2 Forge of Souls and run like 2 copies of this and Bulwark and Ankar? I would guess not, but it might. Ironclad. 3-mana 2/4 mech. If your hero has armor, gain +2/+2. How often does Odd Warrior have an armor left over when it hero powers on 2? If the answer is most of the time, then I think that this card goes right into that deck. So Odd Warrior is a reactive deck. It doesn't care too much about proactive stuff, but it's not going to turn down a 3-mana 4/6, right? 3-mana 4/6 is insane. And it's like in matchups where pressure mattered, this gives you a pressure card. And it's not hard for Odd Warrior to have at least 1 armor. Like, this isn't if you have 5 armor. This is if you have 1 armor. And Odd Warrior, this it's gonna have an armor to make this a 3-mana 4/6 on curve a lot of the time, and that's gonna help you against aggro. So I think that this is a really good card. It's almost good enough to make you think about Bronze Gatekeeper, the 3-mana 1/5 taunt that magnetizes. I don't think it's enough to make the cut in Odd Warrior, but it's enough to make me think about it. Ziliax certainly with this is crazy. And if you think about, like, if you're running Dr. Boom Mad Genius, on 10 you play Mad Genius, and then this has Rush in the same turn. I think this card's great. I don't know. I think this card gets played in Odd Warrior. Neutral, 1-mana 1/3 armor vendor. Battlecry, give 4 armor to each hero. You know what deck cares about having armor and doesn't care if its opponent's deck has armor? Odd Warrior. This card gets played in Odd Warrior, I think. I don't think you cut Eternium Rover. I think you supplement Eternium Rover with this card. I think Odd Warrior just cares about having a 1-mana 1/3 to interact with aggro early and cares about having armor. I was thinking about, like, why would I necessarily run this if I wasn't running Tour Guide before? But in addition to having 2 more health, you can also play this in addition to your hero power on 3. I think this fits with what Odd Warrior is trying to do, and will get played in that deck. That said, all of these cards help Odd Warrior in the matchups that it's already strong in. Odd Warrior is a very, like, I win the matchups that I win and I lose the matchups that I lose type of deck. So, like, being stronger into the decks that it's already strong matters, but I don't think it matters enough, maybe. Something that's interesting about this card is it gives your opponent's Dark Lair deck 4 armor. So if they're taking damage while that 4 armor remains, it doesn't actually discount Flesh Giant at all. So it's like a subtle nerf to Dark Lair, like if your deck wants to run this card anyway. But I don't think it's good enough to run it in a deck that otherwise wouldn't for that reason. Something fun you can do with it is Shudderwalk and Platebreaker. So if you run a bunch of these and Shudderwalk and Platebreaker, your Shudderwalks keep giving you armor and keep removing your opponent's armor and doing whatever else your Shudderwalk does. So I don't know I don't know that that's going to be good enough, but it's certainly going to be fun. I'm talking it out. I'm looking forward to that more than I was a bit ago. So maybe that'll be a cool deck. Crab Rider, 2 mana, 1/4, Rush, Windfury, Murloc. You remember a while back, Mechs got a 1/4 Windfury, and that card sees play. I feel like, so like, this is Rush and -1 off of Flying Machine. So it's better in a deck that doesn't care about which tag it has. Obviously, Mech Paladin would care more about Flying Machine than it would care about Crab Rider. But hand buff Paladin in general has moved away from mechs, and it is looking more for cheap rush minions. This is a cheap rush minion that has Windfury. So if you buff this even like once, you know, like if you use the Smuggler's Run on 1 and hit this, it's a 2 mana 2/5 with Rush and Windfury. So you play it and you remove your opponent's Brigand and also their patches. I think this card's great. It's going to go right into Hand Paladin. Probably not into anything else, but I think it'll be a great card for that deck. Death Warden, 3 mana 2/5. Death Rattles can't trigger. This card's interesting. You can clear your opponent's Cartoots without healing them. You can clear their Void Lords without worrying about Void Walkers. You can kill your opponent's minions that have Librams on them without giving them Librams back. You can kill your opponent's fellow humans without accidentally killing one of your own guys. I could see I could see like an odd paladin running this if the meta was right. Like just odd decks in general are more likely to run a card like this than a non-odd deck would be, because I feel like it's really hard to devote a slot to a tech of this kind, but it's just going to depend on the meta. If you're regularly encountering Scrapyard Colossus from Big Priest enough that you want to just kill it without making the 7/7 so that you can keep going face, maybe this is worth a slot if your deck otherwise doesn't have a good answer to that. But this does feel like a standard card, if anything. Moonfang, 5 mana 6/3 beast, can only take 1 damage at a time. So what's cool about this is you can put like a Spike Ridge Steed on it, and it's like unkillable against decks that don't have a silence. But like Zephyrus is a card, Consume Magic is a card, Execute's a card, Shadow Word Death is a card. You know, like there's so many ways to kill this thing despite its effect. And if you're just playing it on curve, you just Hey Loser it 3 times and it dies. It's really cool when it works out, but like you have to think about the like, if it sticks, you've stuck 6 damage, you know, like 5 mana 6/3. Like, do you want to spend 5 mana in Wild to make a 6/3? You know, like it's kind of a sticky 6/3. But is it worth 5 mana in Wild? And I would say no. Guardian Animals is interesting. Like this in Standard with Guardian Animals could be fun. In a meme deck that boosts health, this could be fun. But I think it's mostly just fun. Deathstalker Rexxar, yeah, that's true. Deathstalker Rexxar, you getting this randomly off of Rexxar, I think, is a buff to Rexxar. But this card on its own isn't really worth playing, in my opinion. At least in Wild. And finally, we have Runaway Blackwing, 9 mana 9/9 dragon. At the end of your turn, deal 9 damage to a random enemy minion. This card is going to be insane in Arena and nowhere else. Comparing this to Rag, it costs 1 more and doesn't go face immediately, but it still goes into a minion immediately and can attack. So I think that this card's pretty nutty in Arena, but I can't imagine playing it in Wild unless your deck cheats out dragons anyway. Um, if your deck is cheating out dragons, is this a good enough dragon? Maybe. But decks that cheat out dragons in wilds struggle to be relevant as it is. So like those decks would have to be better. This deck, like having, there are already payoffs. You just need better ways to like get those dragons out. And I don't think that this is going to make that much of a difference. It's a cool card. I like it. It's not going to be wild viable for a while at least. And that's everything. I think like if I was to pick my top 5 of the set, Backfire's 1, Hysteria is definitely 2, Nitro Boost is 3, then probably Arbor Up, and maybe as I talked through it, I feel like Ironclad might be the nuttiest of the Odd Warrior things. I don't know. This might be my number 5, but one of these 3 cards that Odd Warrior gets. But yeah, that was that.